Hey, welcome to Toys Worth Talking About. I'm John Carlos, and today I am joined by Jeff Victor. I think I'm pointing the right way.
How's it
Um,
going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking.
I'm excited to have you on. What would you say your job title is
I'm a designer, concept designer at Funko.
at?
Yes, yes.
Uh, and I think my the first thing I want to know is as a concept designer, clearly art background, designing. How did you get into at like what age? Where does it stop being just crayons and you start going, this is what I wanted?
I could show you pictures of fan art that I did when I was a little kid of Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, everything. I've been drawing fan art since I was, you know, um, 5, maybe even younger. I don't know. But I filled up notebooks and sketchbooks, and I always loved drawing my favorite characters, whether it's Ninja Turtles or any superheroes, Marvel and DC. Where when I was a kid, being a fan of Marvel and DC is not cool,
Yeah.
but now it's everyone likes Iron Man and stuff. But back in the day when I was reading comics, yeah, I mean, I was just obsessed. I thought I wanted to be a comic book artist for a long time, and but I just was never. I don't know. I could never get perspective. That was always really hard for me. So I just focused on characters and just studied like character design, and just doing like different caricatures and emotions of different characters, and that kind of turned into doing like little chibi style, which I called the bubble heads at the time. And those kind of spun into their own thing, which I then titled Evolutions. Which, if you've seen my work online, if you're familiar with it, you've probably seen these. They're like little visual timelines of famous pop culture characters through the years. But anyway, that caught the eye of Funko, and I was out looking for a job, and someone at Funko reached out to me, and they said, "Hey, you should apply. Yeah, you'd be great for this job." And I've got thousands of chibi characters I've drawn over the years, and I'm like, oh my god, this would be the greatest, most perfect job ever. So I applied, and they liked my work enough that they hired me, and I've been there over a year now, and I couldn't love it anymore.
When I found out you had a job there, that made so much sense to me because as far as I could tell, the evolution style, and you've had different sort of like the evolutions used to look way different like
Yeah.
years ago. But at least for like the last two books, they've had sort of a rounded
Hmm.
edges, but still not totally circular. But like a pop head also has like almost a square shape, but it's very rounded, but it's not a perfect circle. And I went, the size of those heads and the size of those bodies and the shape, that's a good transition. Like that fits to me. That makes sense.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because when I was working at Nickelodeon, when I was doing those really lanky evolutions, where I first started drawing them, everything was very caricature and I was obsessed with, French designers, and I was trying to do all these like very artistic characters, but they weren't really selling. I would bring them to Comic Cons, and like no one would buy them. They liked them, but they weren't really interested in hanging it on their wall. So then I started doing what I would consider a little bit more friendlier designs, more chibi style. And man, those just took off. So that seems to be like what everyone really responded to, and that's what I've been doing ever
And
since.
I mean, and that pairing also makes it like if I'm Funko and I'm looking at your art, and for those of you out there who haven't, we're gonna have the links for you to go check out Jeff's art. But like it isn't just, oh, I only do superheroes. Like, do you like horror? Do you like 80s cartoons? Like it
Mm-hmm.
kind of runs the gamut of all sorts of like pop culture in general. So like I don't know, I feel like them as a company also kind of run that entire gamut. So I could see the circle interests kind of crossing over.
Yeah, I mean you're 100% right. I mean I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I love all that stuff. You know, Ghostbusters and Gremlins and Ferris Bueller, and all that stuff are all my. It's in my DNA basically, just like baked in there. So and Funko, they do a lot of modern stuff, like anime and whatever is popular on TV. I know lots of TV shows that I don't watch, but it's cool because everyone there at Funko has a specialty. There are certain people that specialize in sports stuff, which I could never do because I don't know anything about sports. And then there's people, who do nothing but Disney and Pokemon, and I don't really know anything about Pokemon. I know Disney, but they're absolutely brilliant at what they do. And I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I kind of move around quite a bit. I worked on some horror, which I think we're going to talk about today, and superheroes and Ninja Turtles and all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah, I love to find out that in theory that the sports pops are handled by actual sports fans.
oh, very much so. Yeah, everyone, they one of the things that they do when they hire you is they make you fill out it's not really a questionnaire. It's just basically like, what are your interests? What do you want to do? And then they're very cool. They pair you up with stuff that they think you'll like to do.
That's great because that's usually how you get not to use corporate speak, but like the best product usually comes from someone who loves the thing enough to make the product, worthwhile.
Absolutely.
So, which I think like brings us to, I mean, I only recently found this out that you dig on the horror quite a bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I love horror. What I I think my first scary movie that absolutely terrified me was Ghostbusters. And for years, no, for real, because I saw it when I was a kid, and I didn't. It just parts of it, like the parts where Dana is sitting in the chair, and then the hands rip out of the sofa and like grab her mouth and like haul her into the bathroom. That was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. And for years, I didn't understand that Ghostbusters was a comedy. I was like, oh no, I'm not watching that. That's terrifying.
No,
That's way too scary for me. So then later on, as I got a little older, they're like, hey, moron, no, it's a comedy. So now I love it. I mean, obviously, like it's an all-time classic.
one of the things I love about Ghostbusters, and I think
Yeah,
you just proved my point, is especially if you're like maybe too young of a kid to if you take all the humor out of Ghostbusters 1, you have a pretty good story about these scientists in New York fighting like a demon. Like
sure.
it's a legitimately could be a pretty scary. Like you're describing the couch. That always bothered me as a kid, because Sigourney Weaver sells the terror of it so much.
Mhm.
She's so committed. I have
And
my
then,
own.
oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say real quick, but like watch the camera, how it kind of like dollies around her. It gives you this like sense of foreboding. There's something wrong, but you're not really clued in on what it's gonna be. Like the build up to that is
Oh
what's so
yeah,
new.
and the
You know?
music. It's all. I think it's like all strings for a
Yeah,
bit, and
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, I didn't mean to step on your
No,
comment.
no. My thing was when the ghost vapor goes into the taxi cab tailpipe, and
Yes,
there's this like corpse
this I
in his teeth and these eyeball. Like I would watch Ghostbusters over and over and over, and I would
yeah.
always at that every time I saw a thing go up the tailpipe, I would get up and leave the room. I knew that the car would go, and then I would come back in the room, but I could not watch that.
But here's the thing that always tripped me out about that scene. Okay, so for years I couldn't tell because all the ghosts in Ghostbusters are shimmery, kind of transparent, but not that one. And what I thought was that the ghost actually went into the cab, got a human guy, and like dissolved his
Oh,
flesh and like melted him in between the time that it goes into the cab and then when it turns around, like so he's dying. It's some random guy just dying, and that was very traumatic.
I've never thought about that till right now, but that's
Yeah,
it. Basically, insta rotted him.
yeah.
Yeah. I just always chalk that up to like I don't want to say like they didn't care, but like the within the continuity of the movie, but they're like, what corpse thing? Like,
Yeah,
whatever, you know. Because also there are humanoid, like the librarian lady before she goes,
right.
Um, but then there's also just flat out creatures.
Like Slimer. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much consistency, but that's okay because it's a movie about ghosts and spectral phenomena. It just doesn't necessarily need to have like a hard set of rules, but yeah, that taxi cab always like kind of bothered me.
Well, similarly, and this happens in Ghostbusters too, even though the slime is a different conduit. but that
Mhm.
one lady steps in the slime and her fur coat comes to life.
Mhm.
Whereas the Scaleri brothers and all these other things flying around are all
There's
spectral.
Yes, and there's one thing that really bugs me about Ghostbusters 2 is that Janosch turns into a ghost at one point to kidnap Dana's baby, and that's BS. That should not. I do not like that part. It's the only thing that kind of breaks the lore for me, because ghosts should be ghosts and people should be people, and that's they took it too far.
1,000% with you. And I don't, but I don't get upset. It's too, it almost, it's its own downfall is that he shows up as a old timey nanny.
Yeah, it's I
So like, I can't
well,
like whatever with
yeah,
extendo arm, and then he flies away
yeah. That
essentially in drag, you know.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me. I don't like the part where his eyes glow. It's just a kind of a nothing effect to I don't know. It doesn't really make any sense, but you know.
Yeah. I try not to trash talk
Like,
too much though, because I do find Ghostbusters 2 to be very quotable and very funny.
oh,
But
I love.
it, but there are things that under scrutiny kind of fall apart in a way that Ghostbusters 1 doesn't. But
I agree with that.
but but going back to the physical, this is going to be my segue. The physical cab driver corpse, whatever visual rule you think you have, that doesn't fit in it. And for me, I always find when the rules are nebulous is usually what scares me more,
Hmm.
because I feel like the realm we're in has rules, and when ghosts have their own rules that we don't understand, like if I am, it puts me at a risk if
Hmm.
I can't understand how to fight against the thing. My segue is that in the Insidious movies, sometimes the ghosts appear like the end of a hallway when you look through a thing, but then later, oh no, they're just in our world now. But other times they can do harm. Other times they take a long time to get to you. Some people may have a problem with that. I love the fact that there is no set one path for the ghosts of Insidious. It's a franchise I really like, and it's a franchise I was very, very excited that Funko did something with
Yeah,
this year, which you had a hand in.
I did. Yeah, I concepted that little fellow right there.
Yeah.
That is the key demon, and yeah, that's a good look at him. Yeah, he's pretty gnarly. I believe. I'm gonna mispronounce his name. I think that's Javier Bote. Is that the actor that plays him?
I'm
He's
not that big of a fan to know.
Well, he's a Spanish actor. He's very tall and thin. He was in Crimson Peak. If I'm thinking of the same guy, um, Guillermo del Toro uses him quite a bit. But anyway, but yeah, he's tremendously expressive with his body, very lanky, very um, like he often plays ghouls and monsters in movies. But I think that's who I'm thinking of. I could be wrong. I don't have the internet right here, um, but yeah, no, it was really cool to get to design that one because I love monsters. I love drawing monsters, and I especially love drawing monsters with janky teeth. That's my favorite thing to do.
Oh,
So if you look carefully at that, I made the teeth extra like crooked and weird, just because you have to.
I mean, this light blows it out quite a bit, even
Yeah,
on
it's
my
hard to
lowest
see.
setting. But
Yeah.
there are some considerable teeth there. And I
Yes.
mean, in the movie itself, its whole
Yeah.
maw is just like exposed.
Right.
But
But some of the older Funkos I was looking at, they tend to kind of hold back when it comes to teeth. They tend to like, you know, draw them pretty at just like a regular level for some of them, and sometimes it works, but I really want to push that like
yeah.
gnarly ickiness.
Well,
So
I've been watching, the, not to sound like a hipster, but I mean, I remember when the first like pop started hitting my local comic book shop, and those some of those earliest
oh
like
yeah,
the Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Marvel pops.
yep,
And no mouths were ever included. And then over the years, the head shapes have changed a bit. The size of I mean, it's evolved the level of detail while still retaining the popness. But the one thing over the last, I don't know, when did pops? It's been over 10 years. I feel like it's been about like 11 or 12, right? Is that certain characters part of the distinctive thing has to be involving the mouth. So
Hmm.
like Frankenfurter, they're like, well, you got to have the red lipstick, whereas certain
Hmm.
other characters don't. And I feel like this guy, you need to have the mouth.
I'm a strong proponent of mouths. I think it gives the character so much more expressiveness. I love pupils as well, but that's kind of I'm stuck. I can't do anything about that. That's the the Funko look. But yeah, if I'm gonna do monsters, it's got to have a mouth. Like that's so it's so creepy. It makes it so good. I mean, I know Funko they have been doing more mouths, especially with their musicians. You'll see a lot of like singers that have open mouths.
Steven
Um,
Tyler,
yeah, which is great
some of
because
the famous lips in the business.
yeah, like Gene Simmons. I don't did they? I think they did a kiss one with the with his tongue out. I'm pretty sure they did. Um, but yeah, I mean that's such a no, notable personality trait of him. Like you would have to do something like that.
Yeah. Now, this starts with you and the 2D, right?
Right. Well, it starts with the, I mean, if you really want to go back, it starts with like the licensor approaching Funko or Funko reaching out to the licensor, and then they make an agreement that says, okay, we want to do an Insidious pop. It's going to be an exclusive. And then the sales team or the marketing team, I'm kind of talking a little bit out of my expertise. I don't really know exactly how this works, but someone basically comes to the idea like, hey, we want to do the key demon. So then that gets put on some kind of sheet, and then that's given to me. And they say, hey, Jeff, I have a assignment list like anyone else, like, inbox. And it says, we're going to do the Insidious demon. And then, so it's my job to kind of I have to do my research to like look at all the pictures I can find of him, watch the movie, the clips that he's in the movie, and then try to ascertain like his personality. How would he move? How would he stand? Because each character, you wouldn't that character wouldn't look good if they were just standing, with their hands on their hips like a superhero. Obviously, you would need some kind of um, uh, personality that reflects the character. So I, after watching the clips and seeing all the pictures, I tried to do my best to kind of bring that character to life in a way that would be appealing to someone who is a fan of the movie. And in this case, he's got his fingers out, so you can see all his key little bits, and that was really important for the character. So I wanted to make sure I emphasize that, and yeah, just have him standing in kind of a threatening way, and hopefully you guys like it. I
Well,
did my best.
can I give you two props?
All right.
One, the hand being forward is like, it's not just menacing. The fact that he literally like puts his fingers into your neck, like it is literally that gesture.
Yeah.
So bravo. But also to me, it's the fact that you see it briefly in the movie. He's got little like armpit webbing,
Yeah.
which if you could have easily just kept his arms lower and avoided it. But
Could
the
have.
fact that it's there, it's distinct and it sells the character more. So Insidious is one of my favorite franchises. I think one is a masterpiece, but I'm one of the weirdos who likes 3 and 4.
Okay.
So having something from 4, you know,
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky though because when you're dealing with details like the keys on the end of the fingers, just from like a manufacturing standpoint, that's very hard to do because the molds aren't really set up to do that fine detail. But the sculptors did such a good job, and they were able to make it in such a way that it actually looks really good. I'm really happy with how it came out.
yeah, because do you have to do this like if you're designing it step 1, but then it goes to, I presume, a sculptor, and I don't know if it's a real like a in real life, if that's the right word, or digital, but do you have to consider that someone's actually got to sculpt this, right? So you have to take their work into consideration, right?
Of course, yeah, and you can't have anything too thin, or else that'll snap. You've got to have a certain amount of thickness to a staff or a weapon. You can't have anything too sharp. You can't have anything, like I would love to do like spiky hair bits, but you can't really do that. Everything's got to be like slightly rounded out, just because, just it for the mold making, and just
Hmm.
to keep the aesthetics. So yeah, I mean, you
Right.
have to that in consideration.
Yeah. Sometimes I always call it like it's not quite cartoony, but I just call it like the pop. Like you take things and I say you popify them,
Exactly.
and there's a certain degree where if you get too realistic, too detailed, it stops being a pop.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. You can't go too far the other direction,
Yeah.
because I want to do a lot of detail, but I also don't want it to look like a NECA toy. It can't look like that either. So yeah, I mean, it's a fine line, and the sculptors do such a good job balancing that out. So if I put a little too much detail, which I'm apt to do, they'll say, hey, we've got to take some of this out. You can't do all this, and that's totally fine.
And
But
that's
that's
just part of the process, man.
part of the process. And then they have a supervisor that looks at the sculpt and says, okay, well, the mold's going to need to connect in this way. So we might have to move this leg just slightly to the left or to the right to make it easier to balance, because they have to worry about, will the toy balance? Will it tip over? So, that's always something that kind of they have to concern themselves with. So
That's cool. Right on.
there's lots of people looking at these, making sure that it's the best product that we can make.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, this turned out great. I mean, I already did a review of it, but it's fun to see. Like, had this pop been made 12 years ago, like its face would be a lot smoother, but there's
Yeah,
very specific brow ridge and it to me it pushes how much detail you can put in while still keeping it a pop. I love it. I love it.
that's awesome. Yeah, and we added some like rub, like a kind of a wash over it to give
Yeah.
it to bring that detail out even more. Because that's another thing with monsters, is it's really important to have like a lot of grotty textures and skin tones, and everything is just kind of like a little bit gnarly. And if you just have like just a flat plastic color, it's not. I mean, it looks good, but I feel like with a wash, it'll like take it to the next level.
Oh yeah. Go look at like everything they did with the Walking Dead pops.
Oh yeah,
Like
exactly.
the bicycle girl that's like crawling, all that stuff. Now,
Yeah.
you also did this was a good year for horror pops. And it feels like a good year for you working with horror pops because the Creepshow, which I can't remember if it was an exclusive or not, the Jordy Verrill.
I'm not sure if it was an exclusive. I don't know. I honestly, like, I don't tend to pay too much attention to that stuff. My job is I just focus on the toy, and then I'll let, because keep in mind the time that I design the figure, it doesn't even come out for another year. So it takes
Yeah.
sometimes a year or more to actually see hit the streets.
And you don't necessarily know if it's going to be like an exclusive.
And I
You just
don't
know
know.
you're doing a thing and someone else handles
Yeah,
release, right?
yeah.
But
I,
I think it might have been a regular release. But the only reason I don't know is, and this is my secret shame, everyone. I like Creepshow, but I'm not like super like Creepshow is not like one of my movies, like my heart movies. So like when it came out, like I wouldn't be like, oh, it was an Entertainment Earth exclusive and I pre-ordered it. Like, no, I saw it, I liked it, and there it is right there.
There's Jordy right there. Look at that. This is flocked, which is the best. I love flocked pops.
One of the perfect pops to make a flocked version of. So anyway, that's the reason why I can't tell you it was an exclusive or not is because yeah, but I the second they announced that, I just thought like, oh well, that's perfect. Especially if you're gonna make if if the assignment is we're gonna make a pop of that character.
Yeah.
Um, sure, you could do one of him standing with maybe a little bit of green on his fingertips, but like he
No,
keeps he
hard.
keeps going back to that chair
Yeah.
like considerably. And the second, to me, it's when it's identifiable the second you look at it, and the second you see a guy in a chair with green moss on him, you go, oh, Creepshow, got
Yeah.
it. And to me, especially, I'm always fascinated by pops that are seated.
Mm-hmm.
So not fascinated, but anytime they break the quote unquote mold of a guy standing, so if they're in a flying pose and they're supported, great. But if they're seated in a chair, I go, ooh, that's neat. Um, so you designed that one as well.
I did. This was my first one, and I didn't really know what to do. They
First
didn't.
one ever?
Yeah, they didn't say that he had to be standing up. So I just, because I am a Creepshow fan, and so yeah, to me he's got to be sitting down. I didn't know like there was an extra cost for the chair and all that, but I don't know. I mean, they were able to cost that out somehow. But it just looks so good, and I didn't know, you can't really tell from this, but the chair itself, it's just kind of a brown. I like I said, this is my first pop. I didn't know what to do, so I made like a paisley, like a graphic to do like paisley pad prints, like screen prints on the chair, and they're like, it's too much, too much detail, and I'm like, okay, but that's fine. Um, but yeah, no, I'm super happy with how this came out. I love this guy, and yeah, it's so cute. He's got a spot of honor on my shelf.
Yeah, I think, and like, first of all, Stephen King's performance is one for the books.
Oh, it's great. He's having so much fun.
But of the 5 stories that are being told in that movie, if the assignment is you can make one Creepshow pop to like represent the movie, like I'd say like, well, boom, that's the one.
I'd say this, and I don't know if they've done Fluffy.
Well, I was gonna say
Fluffy's the big monster in the crate.
my
I don't
number
know.
2 would be Fluffy,
Yeah,
and
or
maybe
the birthday cake one would be pretty cool
that's my
too.
number 3.
Hmm. I don't know who we need to talk to get that ball. Yeah, those would be neat.
But the second I saw that, I just went, oh my god, like that's perfect. Like that's all I can really say about it is that's perfect, and I love that they went the extra mile to do him seated.
I'm so glad they did. I mean, it's yeah. I know seated pops are a lot more expensive, so I'm glad they were able to somehow work that out. Um, but it just makes all the difference, and the flocking looks so good. I mean, it would have been, you could have done it with just green plastic, but eh, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been nearly as special.
I mean, and it's only a flocked version.
Yeah,
That's yeah.
it was given to me with the intention of that they were going to so like they'll say, because they'll cost it out and they'll say this is flocked, this is glow, this is diamond glitter, they'll tell the artist, the concept artist, so we know what we're dealing with. So in this case,
Oh,
they all they said was, Jordy Verrill flocked, that's all the information, and then they sent some screen captures, but I don't need those because I know exactly what we're talking about. um but yeah, as soon as I saw that was on my assignment, my like it exactly how you see it here, that's what popped in my head. I'm like, just drew that out
love it.
with kind of like resigned expression with his shoulders kind of slumped forward, and I knew exactly what I was doing.
I presume, as someone who not only works at Funko, but this is your first time you're starting there, getting assigned stuff like Creepshow, it's got to be. I mean, in my brain, this has got to be one of the funnest jobs you can have.
It kind of is. I kind of love it a lot, and I, I mean, I was just telling my friend this the other day, and I said, my college professor used to basically criticize my drawing of fan art, because I would just doodle in class, Spider-Man fighting Juggernaut or whatever, and he says like, no one's ever going to pay you for that, and I said, yeah, probably, but I love it. And flash forward, you know, to today, and I'm literally getting paid to do this. Not Spider-Man versus Juggernaut, but just, superheroes in general. And man, that's exciting.
Oh my god, yeah. I
Go back and tell my professor, like,
You could send him a link to this video.
I wouldn't even know where to find him.
Well, I'm happy to hear that like somebody working with horror pops is such a horror fan and
Yeah,
is
yeah.
enjoying their time.
Oh, this is wonderful. This is the best time I've ever had. I'm just having such a good run. I there every day I get excited to work and to design these things, and I, honestly, like I couldn't think of a better place to be. So this is just, it's perfect for me. I mean, if you take a look at my Instagram, I'm at Jeff Victor Art. If you look at my Instagram, you'll see right away, like this is this is a dude that's just like loves pop culture, loves chibis, loves all this stuff, and you'll get the gist.
Now, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Pie in the sky. We're not talking about realism, and obviously you know more about what it's like there, and licensing is not an issue. If you could just go like, what's a horror pop that like the dream one?
Man. Well, my favorite movie is Little Shop of Horrors,
Ooh,
but they've done some Funkos of Little Shop of Horrors. However, they, I love them. I have them, but I would love to do a full on because they did Audrey too when she was like her kind of medium size. I would love to do a giant Audrey too, like with the base, some kind of base with Mushnick's Flower Shop and Seymour like in the final act, not wearing his Skid Row outfit, but just like his tuxedo because he's about to get married, and then have Audrey. Maybe you can like plug her legs into the plant mouth. I don't know, but what? Maybe I don't know if you could do like articulated tentacles, but this is just like you said, pie in the sky. It'll never happen, but I don't think anyone really gives that much of a hoot about Little Shop of Horrors anymore in 2023. But hey, I love that movie. So
hey, they someone cared enough to make a whole series of like five pops from it.
they did, and I love them, and I love them that they did that. And I'm just sorry. I'm just sorry I couldn't work on them. But
But also, I feel like at least within the horror community that I'm a part of and the film community that I follow on Instagram, every year September, I think September 21st, September 23rd, one's the play date, one's the movie date, but there's always Little Shop Day.
oh
And
yeah,
every year people are always I always post a little audio clip from the opening of the movie. We still
uh,
love it.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing. Like at the end Audrey too, he's got all those little buds that open with all the little mouths. Like, come on, let's do a Funko of that. That would be so good. The Mean Green Mother scene.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Like the second you said that, I imagined tentacles with the little
Yeah, and just his roots are kind of like coming out of the pot at the bottom, and he's just kind of spreading all over the floor. Oh, I
no
would just
that
that.
people would love it. I already know people who would love it. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm not the only like I know other people who have the little shop pops in their collection, so you're not alone with that pie in the sky.
Okay. Well, I mean, the best I can do is like draw it up and then like just slide it under someone's door or something. I don't know. I don't know how you would do that, but hopefully maybe someday. Who knows?
Yeah. Um, before we go, you have a an upcoming book that I want to
Oh
find out
yeah.
more about and let people know.
Yeah, sure. So remember a while back in the interview, I said I always wanted to be a comic book artist, but I was always really bad with perspective and all that. But during COVID, I decided, you know what? I've been wanting to make a comic book my whole life. I've always wanted to do this, and perspective has always been kind of like the one thing that's been, the holding me back. So I really buckled down. I try to learn perspective as best as I can, learn storytelling. I read tons of graphic novels and really tried to understand telling a story. And then the end result of that was it took about 2 or 3 years worth of work, and I came out with this book called You Wish, which is based on an idea that's been kicking around in my head for like 10 years. That I always thought would be a great animated TV show or movie or something. And I drew it out, and I said, I'm just going to do a rough version of this, just a thumbnail version, just to see if I can do it. And I did it. And I was like, I bet I could take this a little farther. I bet I could take this to inks. And I did it. And I'm like, I'm gonna think I'm gonna color this. And then before you knew it, like I had an actual comic. It's like a 150-page graphic novel, and it's actually coming out from a comic company called Top Shelf. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are owned by IDW, which is like a huge comics publisher that does Transformers and Ninja Turtles, and Top Shelf is their artistic imprint. But yeah, it got picked up, and everyone that's read it seems to love it. So I mean, I don't know, maybe they're being nice, but I think it's good. And
Well, I
um,
can't wait to read it.
well, thanks. Yeah, I actually got a lovely, lovely note from an artist named Jeff Smith, who's the creator of Bone, and apparently he he loved it, and he doesn't do cover blurbs very often, but he did a cover blurb for me, saying how much he liked it, and that just floored me because I mean this guy's like my artistic idol. Like I read Bone in high school. I just love that stuff. He's such a talent. And buying there's I don't know if your audience is familiar, but there are these things called artist editions, which are like these giant comic books that are basically like full page scans of the original artwork. And I bought the Bone one, and that was kind of one of the things that got me off my butt and said like, I should do this. I could do this. And so I kind of the spirit of Jeff Smith was with me all the way through the book, and the fact that he ended up loving it is just like, I mean, where do I even begin? I have to pick myself up off the floor. I mean, it was just so cool. But yeah, it's coming out in January of 2024, and it's available everywhere: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart, in stock trades, wherever you buy your graphic novels. And yeah, I give it a shot. It's for ages 9 to 12 technically, but anyone can read it. I mean, it's kind of like Alice in Wonderland, but with like more monsters and stuff. It's pretty exciting.
Well, you say it's 9 to 12, but anyone. I'm like, well, that's Bone, which is why it's a
Yeah,
perfect blurb.
yeah. If you like Bone, if you like Amulet, those kind of like young adult graphic novels, you'll like this. It's very similar in tone to that. It's an adventure. Basically, the quick elevator pitch is that it's about a girl who discovers she's part genie. She finds a magic lamp that she doesn't know it's a magic lamp, and when she rubs it, instead of a genie coming out, she goes into the lamp, and she has to fight her way out, find her way out, find her way home. But it's kind of like a little bit of Harry Potter, you know, with the magic angle, and it's Alice in Wonderland in the sense that it's like a girl like in a strange environment with all these magical creatures, and I don't know, it's just kind of a cool little tale.
Sounds awesome. And can I just say that as someone who's been collecting, your art books for years now,
Years, yeah,
I have four hardcovers
yeah,
of including like the last two evolutions. But just to watch you doing, pop art and characters that existed going and taking your art to now storytelling and to
yeah.
take it to original characters and story that are getting published. I just think like that's the great next step. I'm very excited for you. I
Thank
think
you,
it's
thank
awesome.
you. It was the nicest compliment. The publisher of my book, Chris Staros, he runs Top Shelf, and he gave me the nicest compliment because I wasn't sure if I could even pull this off. I'd never done a comic book before, but he's reassured me. He goes, "Dude, you're a natural storyteller. Like this is exactly it's like no notes, perfect. Let's print it." And man, that was the most validating thing I'd ever heard because I'd done this book and I didn't know if it was good. I mean, I had a couple of friends look at it. They said they liked it, but that's not always the accurate barometer. Everyone's generally pretty nice to you, but yeah, to have the publisher actually say like, yeah, this is great, let's publish it. That's
Awesome.
yeah. So anyway, I hope I've been blabbing on so much about it. I hope you guys check it out. It's called You Wish by Jeff Victor.
Right on. And we'll have links for that in the description for
Oh,
like, because I think there's already an Amazon link for it, right? It's a pre-order.
yes.
Yeah.
Pre-order out. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but it comes out, I believe, this second week of January.
Yeah. This will be in January. So,
Okay, perfect.
hey, what timing? What
Good.
synergy?
Yes.
Thanks for joining me, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to talk, especially about that Creepshow pop, which boy oh boy, just what a slam dunk. I keep looking at it over your shoulder because yeah,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I just think it's great that came out, in my opinion, so perfectly to like capture the essence of that character in that movie and that scene and that whole design.
That's what I
Right
do
on.
with every pop. I try to get like that perfect harmonious look of the character, this that exemplifies them as best as I can.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're working on stuff that's not out yet, so you don't know. But
But that's got like a history and yeah.
mhm.
So yeah, it was good talking horror with you.
Yeah, man. Anytime. This is fun.
come back again. We could talk about some other pops when other pops come out.
Sure. I've got so many coming. So I can't, unfortunately, I can't talk about stuff that is in the process. I can only talk about what Funko has officially released. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've got, I don't
You've
even
got
know,
things.
tons coming. So get ready.
Right on. Well, hopefully until next time.
Until next time.
Thanks
Thank
again
you.
for joining me.
Of course. Cheers.